Welcome, everybody. Thank you. My name is Aaron Smalser. Joining me on stage today is Darin LaFramboise.
I'm Darin, Director of Product for Actions and Auth0 Marketplace.
Thanks, Darin. Today we're going to talk to you about how to create low-friction user journeys using Okta Customer Identity Cloud, powered by Auth0. Now, during this talk, we're going to highlight some really cool things you can do with Auth0 to create simplified sign-up and login flows for your end users. This is our safe harbor slide. It contains some important information regarding forward-looking statements we'll make in this presentation. Any projected release dates or specifics about future features may be subject to change. So today we're going to cover removing friction from login and registration experiences in your consumer-facing app. We're going to talk about some recent and forthcoming updates we're making to the CIC login experience and actions framework that help remove friction and improve flexibility. And then we have a couple of demos for you. One is for how to use phone numbers as a sole identifier for your users. It's been a hotly requested feature for a long time. And we're also going to talk about how to use additional factors in password reset. So let's set the stage. Companies that build consumer-facing apps often face immense pressure to deliver excellent customer experiences. According to Gartner, more than 90% of B2C organizations will compete based on customer experience. In other words, your digital experience will be what separates you from your competition. Also, 86% of customers say they'd leave a brand after just a couple of poor experiences. When a new user approaches your app for the first time, your registration and login experiences are the first digital touchpoints. This experience can have a huge impact on user activation. It's all about getting people into your product so they can realize its value. It sets the stage for the whole experience. If it's smooth, the perception will be that your product is smooth. If it's not, that sets a negative impression even before they even get to see what your product does. So complicated registration and login flows, they decrease your conversion rates, they affect customer retention, and they impact loyalty. So simplicity is the key, right? But getting there is not that simple. Successful companies with an international presence typically contend with many different factors that make providing a simple experience very difficult. This includes differences in user demographics, the types of devices users use, and the specific context in which users are using your application. These factors play a role in determining what combination of steps will give your users the simplest experience. Today, many consumer apps across the globe have already moved beyond supporting just usernames, email addresses, and passwords. To reduce friction, they offer more choices for their end users, not less choices. Let's look at a couple of examples. Take a large international airline. The way users interact with their airline changes depending on where they are in their journey. They may start by booking their flight at home, at their desktop computer, surrounded by travel brochures and other information. They log into their mobile device to check the status of their flight while en route to the airport. They check in and get their boarding pass using a kiosk, and on the plane, they have access to in-flight entertainment. Each of these experiences needs to take the user's context into account and provide options for them to log in using the most convenient method available. Now let's look at banks. Many banks support the use of bank account numbers for identification. A user who is at home reading their bank statement is going to have really easy access to this information, but this is not going to be true when they're on the go, on a mobile device, or maybe checking in at a bank kiosk to identify themselves. It's imperative that these banks provide multiple options to minimize friction. So how can Okta help? Over the last year, we've been rethinking how end-user login, sign-up, and password reset flows can be built to reduce friction, improve the end-user experience, and improve conversion rates, and more. We're calling this initiative Flexible User Journeys. It allows new flexible login options as well as dynamic adjustments of friction based on context to create a friendlier experience for each individual user. Building on top of our existing support for email addresses and usernames, we're on the cusp of enabling phone identifiers as a first-class login ID. This will allow you to build login and registration flows that accept phone numbers, usernames, and email addresses, or any combination of them in your login and sign-up experiences. And following that, we want to provide developers with a way to define custom user identifiers, such as account numbers or membership numbers. And this This doesn't end with the login experience. We're also enhancing our password reset experience to do more than just magic links over email. We've added some new features to let you extend the password reset experience with additional factors so your users have more options as well as greater security. And finally, all of the new login identifiers and factors you can use are tied together by our actions framework. And I've invited Darin to tell you more.
Thanks, Aaron. So extensibility is one of our flagship products. It's what sets us apart. And extensibility, for me, we represent that through actions. Actions in our pipeline view here, our generalized graphic, you can see every point within identity summarized here, where we allow you to pause the identity flow on either account creation or login, password reset, and even machine-to-machine token exchange, where you can use Node.js to insert some custom scripts as you need. You can pause the user flow to redirect and do something else. We'll talk about that in a second, but it's really the powerful piece that really brings Auth0 together. Actions also supports a no-code framework, what we refer to as simply integrations through our marketplace. There are dozens of integrations available from many partners that for many times you don't need the code at all to get there. Let's talk about that in a little bit more down the road, but I also want to go a little deeper onto why Actions is such a great developer product. So built on top of Node.js, and if you're familiar with rules and hooks, our legacy products, we don't limit you on how many NPM modules you can use. You can use anything that's in the public repo. There's over 2 million available, and we bring that right into the product for you to engage with. Our editor is a pretty standard Monaco editor that focuses on the functions of TypeScript and basically allows you to discover our data model pretty easily. We've got built-in security features, so you can put your tokens securely on the system and not have to reference them directly in the code. It also features a draft mode and version control. Everything about Actions is also available through the deploy CLI and Auth0 CLI. So if you preferred managing directly through GitHub or your preferred repo service, Actions supports that as well. Next, I believe, Aaron, you're going to go over a little bit of recent updates. Actually, sorry, this is me. There's a change up. What I wanted to share with the updates, actually, with login flows was if you're familiar with Actions, we tie it to those key points that you saw in the extensibility triggers themselves. Recently, we've added a new one here. The existing password reset was actually an asynchronous trigger. So after your successful reset, you can alert a service like Slack or your CRM or your CDP that the event happened. Now with our flexible user journeys, we support a user synchronous, as in through the journey of password reset, you can interrupt them before the successful reset and do something custom, invoke some custom logic, use a marketplace partner. And I'm going to show a really neat demo on that in just a second after we see some other fun demos. With flexible user journeys, if we want to think about how that password reset works, and this is what's new to Actions, we have the reset flow. It happens right after the first challenge identifier, or the flexible challenge. So either through SMS or email or a third-party option. We then do the magic link, and then we come back and support that Actions trigger there, and that's where you can see it here. Over to Aaron.
Back to me. Thank you, Darin. In order to provide more flexibility in the user registration experience, this fall, we're adding the ability to customize the Auth0 sign-up page to collect additional information about your users. This could include names, birth dates, other information your app needs up front to create a functional experience for your users. So today, you can already inject custom HTML and JavaScript into new universal login page templates, which surround the sign-up box. Has anybody here ever used a new universal login page template and written code in it? All right, it's about maybe a quarter or less of the audience. So you can customize your HTML and the JavaScript in the login box, or outside the login box. But with this enhancement, you can actually go into the login box to inject HTML directly and add additional form inputs, such as checkboxes, radio buttons, and more. The attributes that you collect in your custom code are then saved as metadata on your Auth0 user database, where they can be used inside of Actions or sent to your application when the sign-up and login flow is complete. And next year, we're going to make the registration flow even more customizable by allowing you to define multi-step sign-up flows that are driven by the Actions framework. More on that in a second. We're making similar enhancements to the login experience early next year. You'll be able to add additional custom fields to the login screen as well as create custom multi-step flows using the Action framework. Same as for the sign-up experience. But an example that applies to both is instead of linking to an externally hosted terms of service page, you can host that page directly as part of a custom prompt within the universal login experience as shown here. These prompts can be shown or not shown based on custom logic that you can define in your action code. We're also doing some really cool things with MFA. Today, Auth0 supports many MFA factors, including one-time passwords issued over SMS and email, push notifications, WebAuthn with biometrics and security keys. However, for a long time, it lacked the ability to allow developers to challenge users with a specific factor based on context instead of letting the user decide. So to address this gap, we've introduced a post-login action that will let our customers define which MFA factors should be presented to end users based on logic that you choose. You can use contextual signals such as attributes, organization information, or application information to determine the right factor to challenge a user with. So this feature is in early access right now, and next year we plan to add the ability to drive and enforce the enrollment of specific factors using actions. Last but not least, we're redesigning and rethinking how login IDs work in database connections inside Auth0. Our first milestone this fall is supporting the phone number as a first-class identifier. And with this feature, you'll be able to allow users to sign in and sign up using their phone number as their login ID, paired with a password. You can leverage phone-based methods such as SMS for account verification, and optionally enable multiple possible identifiers for your end users to choose from, which can also include the email address, the username, or the phone number. And next year, it's in our vision to add support for custom identifiers, which you'll be able to define and implement to meet the needs of your business. And this includes being able to define membership IDs, account numbers, and other custom string formats that you want to use as login identifiers. And on that note, let's do a quick demonstration of what it will look like to configure and use a phone number as an identifier for an Auth0 user database. So on the screen now is the current Auth0 dashboard experience for configuring user databases. So how many people have seen this dashboard before? All right, maybe about half, a little more. When it comes to figuring IDs in a database, Auth0 gave you the option to require a custom username if you wanted to use usernames, but the email address was always a required property that a user always needed to enter. So in our updated Auth0 dashboard experience coming this fall, you'll be able to configure phone number as a login ID in addition to still having options for email addresses and usernames. For each configured attribute, you can decide if it should appear as an available identifier on the login prompt, as well as if it should always be a required attribute on the user profile. For email addresses, you can optionally configure if the user must verify their email address in order to complete the registration flow. Previously, this required a little bit of code. We're going to make this a no-code experience. Here's the configuration experience for phone numbers as identifiers. It provides the same option as email addresses, but when it comes to optional verification, it sends users a one-time password over SMS that they need to enter in the registration form in order to complete the registration. And again, requiring registration is optional. If you do not want to introduce friction to require phone number or email address verification, we've made it optional. You do not have to do it. And I can't leave out that you can also completely remove any identifiers that you don't want to collect from your end users. Here, I will remove the username as an attribute from my database connection. And, drum roll please, here I will remove the email address. Now I have configured phone numbers as a sole identifier for my users. Next, we'll see what it looks like when an end user registers for a new account using just a phone number. And we'll also show the optional verification flow using SMS OTP. Okay, so the users entered their phone number. They're entering their password to create an account. They're going to be prompted to verify their phone using SMS OTP. And they're signed up. That's all it took. Next, we'll show the login experience the next time your user returns to their application. They'll use their phone number as well as their password again. And they're in. And Here's some examples of login experiences where multiple identifiers are allowed. The screen on the left shows an experience where you've configured the ability for a user to log in with either a phone number, or email address. And the screen on the right shows an experience where the user can log in with a phone number or username using our identifier first login page configuration option. Next, we'll show some cool stuff you can do with password reset and extensibility. Over to you, Darin.
Thanks, Aaron. So I want to talk about a scenario here with something that we can all get behind. Bank accounts, one of the most protected accounts we ever want. And we all know plenty of people who are still not using a second factor available. But even before that, I need to reset my account because I want to log into the bank. I forgot my password because I've reset it so many times, and Chrome is giving me one or the other, and I can't figure it out. Eventually, I might get locked out. So I'm going to paint a scenario of, in that scenario today, banks largely will assume that your email could have been compromised if email is your only means of verification, and that's also where you're going to be using as your username or password in this case, which we can now use some new factors. So in here, what we're going to do is I want to demonstrate what could happen if you actually think about the bank scenario of, now they're going to make me call them. I'm going to have to sit on the phone line. I'm going to have to answer some weird questions about ice cream flavors and third grade teacher pet names and who knows what. It's going to take forever. I'm not looking forward to that. So it's an element of friction that we think about beyond the login box or the password reset flow. Some banks even make you physically go in during bank hours to talk to a teller with your points of identification. And if you think about that from your users, to do that, they're just going to leave it. Or they're going to say, you know what, I'm done with you. I want something that's easier and meets me in my space. So we're going to use a partner from the marketplace. I'm going to show you how to do this. Called Persona. Now they're an ID proofing specialist that can take a government ID, do a liveness check in real time, and enough of a verification can happen against government credentials in which the bank is comfortable now with allowing you to then reset your password, because it replaces that element of needing to call in with additional passwords and pets and names and ice cream. So where this is going to work in our flows these days, user comes into the login, they hit the reset. We're going to use the scenario of an email reset link. The magic link is going to come through. Now you're going to see the actions in place that can allow for a redirect or that custom logic you need, or a marketplace partner to add that additional security factor to make the password reset sequence that much more secure. And then we're going to see the reset prompt. I have abridged a little bit of the demo for time. But first, let's go over to the Auth0 marketplace, where you can find any number of solutions, not just from ID proofing, but fraud prevention, consent management, everything that we need. And if however you don't find, we're always welcome to feedback, and we'll continue to expand our category. From here, I'm going to find one of our key ID proofing services. So our partner Persona has their integration right here. We're going to click Add Integration. Immediately, we're going to log into our tenant and be presented with a consent prompt. This will just tell us what data is going to exchange from our tenant to Persona, pretty standard. Let's go ahead and accept that. And now, a disclaimer here, Persona will require an additional license from their service, and they will provide you with a token, an API key, just to pop in here for your configuration so the two can talk. Next, we will drop into our actions flow editor at this point. Persona right here, let's drag it, and you'll see we can now put it in the actual sequence of password reset. This is brand new. The existing password reset trigger we had was an asynchronous after the fact, so we couldn't do something as slick as this. So it'll show we're going to do it right there, pop it in, let's hit apply. With that little dialog, it is now active in our tenant, so the next person who hits the password reset, actions will take over. So let's go over to the bank. I'm at Zwo Bank. I forgot my password again, Aaron. So I'm going to hit forgot password. Let's see what happens. All right, standard. Let's get our emails. Let's go to the email. Let's click our magic link. Actions comes in and says, well, wait, we don't know if your email was compromised as well. So let's go ahead and put Darin down the flow of, let's check his ID real quick. Remember, phone number, ice cream, bank visits. OK, first, United States. Next, I'm going to use my driver's license. All right, now the dialog is going to now ask me for, let's upload that license. So camera on the phone or your webcam on your laptop. We scan it, process, takes about 30 seconds. Next, we're going to do a face check. So it's going to check against the ID and I believe the API in the back end that Persona has. Now we're also going to be looking for both, not just the face, but the liveness as well to make sure that that person is a human and we're not just holding up a picture. So next up, look down, look left, look right. It's not that complicated. And then there we go. It's checked my credential against the government service. It's checked me, likeness. We get to proceed. I get to reset my password, and hopefully this time the password manager saves it. But we're not going to need passwords anymore because we got passkeys, right?
That's right.
All right, Aaron.
Thank you, Darin. So thank you, everyone, today for attending our talk about creating flexible user journeys. We hope you learned some things that were useful that you can take away, and we'll be on the floor to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.